Welcome back, everyone, to As Bobby C Sees It. I'm Bobby C, Anonymous Addiction Deprogramming Everything podcast. Part two, we were just on earlier with Conrad. Conrad, tell us what this part two is going to be all about.
Hey, so thanks for having me back, part two. So you touched on an episode I did, in which I talked about transformative resistance, and we'll talk about that this episode, which is great. It seems like I just coined the term, and now you're picking it up, so that it feels very nice, and I think it's important and it's profound, so it's awesome that I get to talk about it. So. Transformative resistance is a term that really is describing a feeling that you get. A lot of so-called alcoholics get this. People who are struggling with drugs and alcohol, they get this feeling that the whole world is working against them. This is especially happening when you're trying to change, you're trying to not drink, you're trying to do things better. And for some reason, it just feels like there's a cloud over your head and you're getting all these obstacles. You're getting all of these things that are going wrong. And of course, this is not limited to people who have issues with drugs and alcohol. This is in life. I think we can all relate to this. It just doesn't have a set term, which is why I named it that. Uh, Now, some people say you're delusional if you feel like you've got all these things going against you. And of course, that could have paranoid qualities, but it's a very real and natural thing. And in this part two, we want to go in deeper, talk about the things we have in common, and this is a bit of a deeper concept that this is really a natural thing. This is an occult thing, occult meaning hidden. It's just a thing we don't notice about actual nature. This is within the fabric of the universe. And part of this is that when you're breaking patterns, every time you make a decision, you make a certain decision under adversity, or whenever you have something going against you, your decision always has effects. It's cause and effect, right? Every cause, everything you do has an effect. So when you make a certain choice, that goes into this so-called like a ledger or a blockchain of the universe. The universe remembers everything, all of the actions taken. So when you do the same thing over and over again in the same kind of situation, in your brain, this is just neuroscience. It hardwires patterns between, stimuli, impulses, desires. So you're like going down the same path like a dirt road, and it just settles in, and it gets to be a very hard road. It gets to be like a river, right? Now, when you're trying to break those patterns, there's resistance there. This is what I call transformative resistance. When you're trying to transform, when you're trying to change, you're going to encounter resistance because the last 1,000 times you got to this place, you made this decision. So there's almost like a muscle memory where you're going to get pushed into this direction. And it doesn't mean it's not anything about good or evil. This is just the way it works. This is just the way reality is. When you're trying to break patterns, you're going to feel like everything is working against you because it's going to require a lot of energy. It's going to require effort to undo what you've done 1, 10, 100, 1,000 times before. Uh, and the whole message of transformative resistance, the whole point of talking about it, is that when you encounter these times and you feel like everything is going against you, you feel these hard times, you feel like there are all these obstacles and trials that people don't even understand. It's hard to even convey it to people, because how do you convey the idea that, like, it just seems like there's an invisible enemy that doesn't want to see you succeed? Well, that means that your breakthrough is around the corner, actually. This is the thing. The harder things get, the greatest, like if you're thinking about pulling a rubber band, your greatest resistance is going to be right before you break that sucker, right before you get to the last, get the last step, do the last push-up, where when you get past the finish line. That is when you're going to feel the worst. Uh, and that is the way nature works. To accomplish something, you want a certain result. It takes effort. And when you've taken the easy way so many times before, that kind of becomes part of you. And now when you want to do things the right way, it's going to be that much harder. You've been swimming in the other direction your whole life. If you want to swim back, you're going to have to cover more distance. Uh, and
Rewiring takes a lot of effort, a lot of energy, a lot of desire. Wherever the attention goes, the energy flows. So rewiring can take time. And I think what Conrad's saying is that we need to have time with this. We have to be patient with ourselves. We give up at the last moment that could be the point where it's a turning point and we give up. It takes time. Rewiring that. Look, mentalism, the mind's everything. Okay. So it's a computer. We got to rewire it. We got to unlearn things and relearn things. It's going to take us time. Breaking down old patterns. I think Conrad mentioned that in the podcast too.
Yeah, and this computer's smart, it doesn't want to be reprogrammed. Where our computers are better than the computers that we built and that are running our podcasts. This computer we're working with here is it's a amazing, it's a miracle of a biological machine. So when we hardwire it a certain way, there's a force there. There's a force that wants it to continue. And it doesn't mean that this is something outside of yourself that's working against you. No, it's a part of you. But just like us, that thing can be real stubborn, and you have to be stubborn too. The thing I believe I said in this episode, Transformative Resistance, is even if you're not going to succeed, you should try anyway. You should try even if you're saying, hey, even if you think you're condemned to be a certain way. This is a hill that's worth dying on. Because we do have choice. And even if we do not reach our ultimate goal, the fact that we made the choice to do the right thing, that is what has lasting effects. Now, if we did that more often, there would be a lot less transformative resistance collectively, right? Because this is a thing that happens within us, but also this is something that gets passed down to your children, and your loved ones see this, right? A lot of us, we don't just have to break our patterns, we have to break the patterns of people in our own family line and our ancestors. For example, we've been choosing the pattern of, as a species, as human beings, we've chosen the route of having other people handle our problems, right? This kind of abdication of personal responsibility. This is the reason we have programming, and we have to deprogram from these systems of control.
From generational
Government, banking.
Generational programming and trauma. Generation through
Yeah.
generation. Ancestral.
And it's trauma. It is. And this is, we've chosen to, like Stockholm Syndrome, side with our abusers in the past. And this is why it's so hard to even imagine a world without control, without, government intervention, without all of these regulations. People don't even see how that could happen without police and military.
Let's talk about, I'm going to mention on this podcast again, don't forget to subscribe. Like us if you like the content. But listen to this here. Now, Conrad's he never been to Alcoholics Anonymous. He's never been in the 12-step programs. So everything he's going to be talking about stuff that he can observe from an outsider of the program. Let's talk about AA, the symbolism of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'll get into it a little bit because I'm going to be doing a podcast when the symbol, the triangle inside the circle, it's going to be doing a little podcast when that maybe this coming week. But you were talking about just Alcoholics Anonymous, which kind of, I've been thinking for the last months now to take anonymous off of my anonymous addiction, because I don't like the word anonymous either. What do we need to be anonymous about? What the hell do we do? Like we did something wrong or something? Talk about that a little bit. Talk about that a little bit about the.
Yeah, it's all about the name. The first thing when we look at yeah, it's all about the name, You look at symbolism first, you look at the name, and I think about Alcoholics Anonymous, starting with the first word, alcoholic. Well, the whole thing about AA, you come in, it's like an initiation. You say, my name is this, and I'm an alcoholic. So you replace your name, actually. You're already replacing your identity with the identity alcoholic. It's already a collective. And then anonymous is the lack of a name. Your name is missing. So the whole thing is that I see is about replacing your identity. Now, you can, this is the hard thing about getting off of drugs and alcohol, is because you have to crush your whole image of your identity. It kind of has to fall apart because it was built on shaky foundations, and you got to build that thing up all from the beginning. Now, that's hard to do. That's a personal journey, and that's a journey you can't make billions of dollars on. So you can, of course, replace the self with this kind of image, this kind of a collective, this kind of AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. And that's what I see in the name itself, is that this is just this image where you can replace the self. The self is bad. All the little problems, all your emotions, you can just close them off, because here you have your savior.
Yeah,
You
that
have this, you
yeah,
can get rid of your identity, and you can just look up here, and Alcoholics Anonymous is your perfection. No
yeah.
work required.
Because we know what to say. Internet connection is unstable. I don't know why, but so we're talking about the collective giving your life. Look, the third step came to give your will and your life over to the care. We could talk about the care because Mark talks about the eighth principle, the eighth hermetic principle, the hidden principle of care, giving your will and your life over to the care of AA and God. That's, that right there is hijacking your whole body. Let's talk about disease or disorder, because I don't even like the word substance use disorder either. That's a DSM-3. So disease and disorder. Talk about that a little bit. Now, remember, Conrad was never an Alcoholics Anonymous, but you don't have to be in to understand occult knowledge.
Yeah, disorders and disease with this, it always rubbed me the wrong way, because it seems like it's already a deflection of responsibility, right? This is something you have, and it's like a burden, and you're carrying it, like if you had your arm cut off, it's like there's no way of changing it. So I don't like disorder, because it let me off the hook. I didn't have a disorder. I was making bad choices because of A, B, and C. I figured out these things. Some of it is in the story in part one, and some of these things, we would have to go deeper to get into. I figured out the things that made me make those choices. But this is not a disorder. And I was told I was diagnosed with disorders other than substance abuse disorder. I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. And my family doctor, he's like amazed. He's like, well, I don't know how you did it, but because I didn't have a disorder. I of course had the symptoms that go with that. Yes, those symptoms can be accurately described, but we're talking about the source. The source is, again, there are these patterns that I chose over time, and those patterns I was locked into because of A, B, and C that were not healed within me. I had to go look myself in the mirror. I had to really have some tough times. I had to work hard over time to not make the same choices I made before. Like when you're feeling angry, when you're feeling, jealous, when you're feeling hurt, you have to catch yourself right there. Be like, wait a minute. Last 100 times this happened, I did this. This didn't help me. So I got to go this way this time. Now, if you just call it a disorder, and then the disorder, of course, implies what? That you need medication, right? You need to put yourself in order. So disorder, all it means is a lack of order. You're already being put in a position of dependence upon somebody who's supposed to be your savior, your fulfiller, someone who's going to make it all better. Nobody's going to make it all better. You need to make it better, of course, with the support of other people, because
Right.
it's a relationship between you and others around you.
Yeah,
Disorder is,
like Conrad said
yeah,
before about support. We believe in support. We believe in, mentorship, going to certain other men that maybe have a lot more wisdom and time and knowledge. That's all great. We're talking about collective collectivism, almost like group think, group tank, personality, a cult of personalities. we don't need that. Recovery, like I said in the last podcast, the recovery industry is a trap to trap us. Calling it a disease is just saying that it's uncurable. You have this uncurable disease. You must come to us for the rest of your life, almost like the pharmaceutical industry, giving you pills for the rest of your life. You have to live on these type of pills for the rest of your life. If you're cured, there's no AA. If you're cured, there's no pharmaceutical, there's no medicine. So they're not in the business
Yeah.
to cure you. They're in the business to keep you sick. Let's talk about, you know what? Let's get into some of the seven. Go ahead. Go. Go ahead, Conrad.
Yeah, before, because I just thought of this now. It's like a spur of the moment thing. I think we might have a bit of a delay. I hope you can hear me all right. Uh, much more so than a disorder, I think it would be more accurate to call it an injury. I think we're injured, and there's a way to heal from that. If you're gonna call it if you're gonna call it addiction, you're gonna call it anything. It's much more of an injury. Like we had damage done here, it didn't heal right. This needs to be healed, and there's a finite nature to this. There is an end. I don't think about alcohol and substances anymore. I just don't. There are not enough substances in the world to satisfy me anymore. My satisfaction comes from what I do, things that last, things that have actual value. I'm not a prisoner to my former vices. And I think you are about to go into the seven deadly sins, and we could talk about that.
No, I agree with that. Disorder, you know, seven deadly sins. You know, in the big book, they talk about our seven deadly sins, like, oh, you must get rid of all these things. And these things, part of my life still today, and they save me, you know, jealousy. Let's talk about anger a little bit. Like everybody is like, oh God, if he's angry, that's a sin. You know, anger is a dubious for other people, but not for people that drink. You cannot have anger.
Hmm.
That will drive you to wherever. That's going to drive you to drink. Well, I'll tell you what, I've been an angry son of a bitch for the last 40 years. I haven't had a drink or a drug in 40 years, over 40 years, and I've still been an angry son of a bitch, and people will testify to that. But I'll tell you what, anger saved my life a lot of times for me, for my emotions, just to get me out of the present. You know, I learned definitely today. I learned to deal with my anger. I don't, you know, I know it's more of a personal thing. I know when to walk away from it, you know. Do I still hurt people with my, words? Some words that I say? Yes, I still do. Do I realize it today? Yes, I do. Do I have to eventually say to them, you know, hey, I'm sorry I said those words to you. I really, you know, I didn't mean it, but this is what happened. Okay. Uh, you know, I apologize, but most of the time it's two-sided though. Everybody thinks it's just you, you know, just no, we have to look at both people, you know, who played the part in it. Both people played the part in it, not just one. You know, in Alcoholics Anonymous, they always want us to put the guilt on us. I'm the guilty one. I'm the shameful one. I'm the one that needs to be shamed. I'm the one that needs to be guilty. No, that's bullshit. No, because other people play part in this stuff and provoke our anger, you know, and twist our anger. And you know what? We should be angry about a lot of damn things that go on into the world, okay? Because there is evil, okay, in the world. And people want to deny there's evil in the world. Well, there's evil, there's good. Like, isn't there hell and heaven? There's hell and heaven. I'm just using these words right here on earth. Okay, good and evil, and everything in between. Everything in between. There's not just good and evil. There's everything in between. But I recognize the evil, and I get pissed off at it. Yeah, I get angry, but guess what? I use that anger. I use that anger for power today. I use it to my benefit because I'm aware. See, they don't have control over me. Once I'm knowledgeable, once I become aware of all the manipulation, all the programming, all the matrix that'll be put in place, I become aware of it. That's powerful. Man, it's so powerful to be able to still have the anger, but be relaxed with it and say, you know what, I see what's going on. You know, that's powerful stuff. Conrad, what do you got to say about that?
Well, I see what you mean about having a lot in common. I think anger saved my life too. I actually think there's not enough anger in the world for the right reason. It's the right nature. I think someone said this. It's like the red flame and the blue flame. But the point is, there's a type of anger that's like an explosion, right? It's something that's going to lash out. It's going to hit the first thing that it has in its grasp, and then you're going to feel like drained afterwards. You're usually lashing out on at a family member or because your team lost in football or all these little things, trivial things. There's too much of that anger, like road rage. But there's this kind of a controlled burn of anger, which is where anger should be tamed, not repressed, but it should be tamed. It should be there where it needs to be, like a flame. A flame is the source of warmth. Now, of course, you could get the flames get out of control and you get too close to it, and it's a destructive force. But anger and it's so badly needed. Just ask, if you ask some real women, like they're looking for men to be as angry as they are. A lot of these women are so angry with what's done to the world. I'm talking about, special women, the good ones. They're angry about what they're telling their children to do, what they need to take into their own body and what they need to put on their face, A, B, and C. Uh, we're missing a whole lot of anger when it comes to you know, women and children especially, this, of course, uh, um, drugs and alcohol is affects men and women alike. But this is generally like, I like to talk about it. I like to focus on the masculine because this is like the story I relate to. This is a male problem. I see it. This is a lack of our true masculinity. I know that's where it came from for me. I had all this doubt about myself, inadequacy, all these things. This is the reason I went to drug and alcohol, to kind of fill these things, because I was not the real thing on the inside. We need to become the real thing on the inside, and that involves anger. Maybe not in a perfect world, maybe not in a heaven on earth, maybe not even in a, you know, decent world. But we're in a sick world, actually. Not that life or nature is sick, but the people who are trying to rule this place, they've totally overstepped their boundaries. They've hijacked everything. There's control everywhere. And the worst part is, even when there is no external control, they've got us being our own policemen. They've got um, a separation between man and woman, between, parents and children, the separation between the generations. They've done that where there is even no control. There is no, person with a gun over them. we that has happened. Now, if that should make us absolutely angry. Now, that's not the kind of anger that's destructive at all. That's the kind of anger that makes you get your ass up and do podcasts
Right.
and speak up in conversations with other people, not about who's going to win the election. How about what we need to do to make sure that whoever dares to run for public office, well, they better get their act in order, because we're watching them and we're going to demand better. Anger is good. It makes you demand better. It's a dissatisfaction with injustice. That's how I define anger. That's what it should be.
Yeah, and the thing is that the government, the media, the oligarchs, the puppet masters who control everything, they realize that when we say rebellion, rebellion, when they go do burn down cities, and all that does is get the government bigger. They want you to do that. They want us to do that. They want us to be that type of anger. We're not talking about that type of rebellion. We're talking about here. We're talking about the consciousness, becoming aware of what's going on, so we could start helping, like Mark's podcast, one mind at a time. Yeah, I do one mind at a time. That's all it takes, is just trying to change one mind at a time. And it's very difficult when somebody is so to the other side. You're almost wasting your time and breath. And you can tell that, you can feel that. Not that you can't put little seeds in every once in a while, just pluck little seeds in, because they're going to rebel against you. They're going to come back and rebel against you. Put a little seed in, one here and one there. But yeah, it's a tough deal. Divide and conquer is their big master plan. Divide and conquer with everything, no matter what it is. We're still living in a circus, the Roman days, and we have our coliseums all over the place. So yeah, seven deadly sins. What else have we got going?
Got anger.
We got the anger, symbolism. Let me talk about the
Uh,
symbolism. What do you know about the circle and the triangle? What
okay, so first of all, First of all, the circle is going to be your primordial quintessential feminine element. It's the circle, it's the curve, the beautiful shape, the womb that we come from, the cosmic egg, the earth itself is a circle. Uh, our body, our energetic field, it is the circle that nurtures us. And even the sun in the sky, which people see as a masculine symbol, I get that. But anything that nurtures you is coming from a circle. Now, the triangle is the masculine aspect. Triangle is upward motion. It's rigid. It's pointing up. Even if you look at the shape of our anatomy, right? If we're talking about reproduction, it's like this triangle pointing up is has always represented the man, even on bathrooms, right? It's the triangle pointing up. So it's the man and the woman being one. Now, why is that relevant with Alcoholics Anonymous? The separation between the masculine and feminine within us and in our families is the reason for what we call alcoholism. We're just separated from, it's a lack of care, it's a lack of love. We're missing something. We're missing something we desperately wanted, and this thing the wine, the bottle, whatever it is, your drug of choice, it replaces the relationship that we really want, which is a genuine relationship between male and female, whether that is you and another person or within you, the aspects that have been separated and need to come together. Though that's what I see in that
and which
triangle
we
and circle, and it's the Holy Trinity, right?
and which we know though today 50% marriages are divorced. Okay, so we know the need for that is so real, lacking, uh, because it's hard to stay in relationships. Relationships are very difficult today, especially in today's. We could get into, let's see, emotional programming, mental programming. Uh, what else you'd like to talk about? Let's go with the universal law, natural law. Let's get into some how does natural law. First of all, alcohol, drugs, I believe they're symptoms. You know what we could talk about. Why even talk about that stuff? I mean, that's like that's not the real deal. The
Mm.
alcohol and drugs is just that's the that's the solution actually to a problem that we're lacking. We're lacking this, so we take this, fills us up, makes us feel good because we don't have the awareness, we don't have the higher consciousness, the higher vibration. We don't have any of the wisdom that is passed on from childhood to us. So we have to fill it up with more. If you want to have any disorder, it's a disorder of more, wanting more, always wanting more. You
Mm.
know, the word desire in itself just means a wanting. I desire more knowledge. I desire
Mm.
more truth today, more awareness, more conscious, a higher vibration. Uh, Look, if people want to continue doing what they want to do, they want to get off alcohol and they use the Sinclair method or they use the management, moderation management, or they use medication management, or I don't care, you're using cannabis still to, if that's going to help you, yeah, that's great. If that's going to help, but if you're looking to eventually, not the pharmaceutical drugs, because I'm not that intelligent to think that there aren't people that need some type of SSRs. Maybe there isn't, but as far as I know, there's possible people that could use some of that. Okay. But I'm not talking about that. But if you are wanting to um, live an alcohol drug free lifestyle, it gives you a higher vibration. I know that's a fact. I know it. I don't need anything in my body. Matter of fact, I'm afraid to put anything because it'll take me from the power. It'll actually take my power away when I put that stuff in my mouth. It's almost like they want us drugged and drunk. It's a distraction. What do you got to say on that comment? Go ahead, buddy.
No doubt about it. Is anything to take you out of the present moment, anything to take you out of actually living your life, you know. There are so many beautiful things to experience as long as you're there. But it's just like going out, right? Going out, it's always drinking around at these gatherings. It's like the things that are really great, it almost has to be ruined with you talked about the disease of more. It's like, okay, well, let's just throw this in there, and you're now being taken out of taken out of the natural, the real, and being replaced with there's something artificial in here now. There's something that's going to get in the way of you and this great thing. We're being robbed of a whole lot of great experiences because of all these things. And it's not just drugs and alcohol. It's like the high intensity imagery, right? You've got these Instagram models, you've got images of all this stuff, and it's we've got so much of that now. When we meet a person, like, she doesn't look that good because look at this girl, right? You've been something that's completely separated from what it should be is now part of your experience. We have that with food, right? We just can't can't be happy with an apple anymore because you got juicy steak all on the advertisements, right? So your mind is all bombarded with all these things
I
from
was I was I
from
was just going to
all
use that word, bombarded. I was from
different
everywhere,
directions.
subliminally, osmosisly bombarded. Netflix. I mean, I like Netflix. I watch it all the time, but I recognize the bombardment. I recognize the programming. I see it. I know it. I know where it is. I can point it out. Me and my wife can say, there it is, there it is. But we still enjoy the program, but we're not programmed because we can recognize the program of the Netflix. Booze all the time. Boo, alcohol is the deadliest. People will say, you're demonizing alcohol, you're demonizing a drug. You know what? Yes, I am, because it is evil. Okay, I hate to say it, but it is evil, and it's everywhere. It's being promoted everywhere, and it's being promoted for a reason. And you know what I see? People talk about the war on drugs. They talk about all the cartels bringing in all the drugs. I see the younger people today are promoting more drugs in their own sense. Cannabis. You think the government loves you, wants more cannabis dispensaries because they're going to get more tax dollars. You wait to see where the industry goes with the cannabis industry. There's only going to be probably 3 corporations that own all the cannabis industry in the whole probably world eventually. But it's a tax dollar. They want everybody to be smoking it, everybody, no matter what. I believe if you want to smoke, power choice, the freedom of power choice. If you want to smoke it, that's your choice. It's no big deal. Grow a couple weeds in your backyard, okay? Grow some. You're allowed to grow 3 plants. Grow in your backyard. You want to smoke some? Learn how to trim it and smoke it yourself. Give it to your friends. That's up to you. But everything is being promoted that the drugs are good. It's okay. Everybody should have autonomy now. Everybody should have the freedom to do whatever they want. It's almost like when Moses came down from the mountain and seen all the pagans and people going crazy. It's like that's what's getting to be like. What do you think, Conrad?
Yeah, and it's not freedom at all, right? It's not freedom. It's actually dependence on all of these things, right?
Exactly.
It's not the freedom that you can take anything you want. It's that you're not actually free because your choices are now limited because uh your experiences that you're having, they all have this thing in the background. I'm seeing so many of the electronic, the little cannabis pens. It's gotten so convenient because I remember how it was. It's like, well, you'd smoke weed all the time if you could, but you have to roll it up. You have to, it's gonna smell. You need to do all these things. Now you've got it in your pocket. You got kids smoking this stuff in schools. Is that going to make them more free? It's going to make them mentally and emotionally handicapped. There are all these things now that are going to like become part. It's like more and more burdens that we're taking on that feel good for a little bit, but uh, it's really I see it as straight up warfare, this
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah. It's mental, emotional, spiritual warfare. There's no question about it. But they're making it into something beautiful. They're making it into we're giving you freedom when they're just keep on taking it from us. Like you mentioned in one of your podcasts, surveillance today in the United States. is out of control. The surveillance that we have. I mean, here it is right here on my computer, on the smartphone. Anything that says smart is a surveillance unit. You know, we got 4 minutes left. I think we're going to come back. Me and Conrad will come back and do a podcast on natural law, universal law, how it applies to addictions, how it applies to the world, and how learning about natural law, which nature. You know, I want to touch base on one thing if I have 3 minutes left, and maybe you could hear me on this. When I was young, it's weird. This is the weird thing that I learned. Is when I was young, I knew stuff that I know today is true without words or knowledge. It was just known. It was almost like I knew this and no one taught me it. But that's the stuff we deny and go on with it. That's almost like the transformative resistance, because we're being bombarded with the programming and the messaging so much that our intuitive, like, things that's coming from the ether that we have naturally is being diminished over and over and over again when it's naturally inside of us. We know that we're rebellious. They would see in Alcoholics Anonymous, they tell us that rebellion is bad. No, rebellion is not bad. It's how you rebel. It's how you rebel. Okay? Rebellion is not bad. I could see how I was rebellious against the service and against, you know, I was born in 1950. So you're talking Vietnam War and stuff like that. I was rebellious back then. I kind of knew it. I didn't want to die. I didn't want the government to send me over there and me die for something that they were bullshitting me about. And I'm proud to say that too. What do you got to close with? We got 2 more minutes, Conrad.
Rebellion's a funny thing. I made a video called "The Case for Armed Rebellion," right? Uh, but it's really much more so. Yeah, it's rebellion against all these things. And yeah, I've always been a rebel at heart. But what goes hand in hand with that is that kind of thing that you talked about, that knowing, right? That common sense, that intuitive. You've never heard the words for it before, but you knew it the whole time. What we're rebelling against is this constant bombardment, this programming, all these voices that are trying to tell you that that's not real. And this takes me back to this was 2019, I believe. The first time I heard Mark Passio, I was driving a forklift. I was on my forklift. Back then, I was drinking two big bottles of Heineken on lunch, and then going back to drive the forklift. But you know, I'm listening to this guy for the first time. He was a guest on Infowars with Alex Jones, and I hear him talking. I'm like, wow, so what I've been thinking is
We
real.
got 1
This is
minute.
actually real.
1 minute. Say it.
This
1 minute.
stuff exists.
It's
And that's
real.
what I thought. When you hear the truth, it's like, wait a minute, I've been right the whole time. And that was the beginning of my sobriety, of my change. Hearing the truth and saying, wait a minute, I wasn't crazy for
And it
thinking
and it
this.
resonated. It resonated, and it
Yep.
was like it validated what I believed to be true. Thank you, Mark Passio. Conrad, thank you. Okay, we're going to catch up. We're going to catch up on maybe a week or two, and we're going to get together. I want to say, everybody, check us out. Don't forget to subscribe. We're going to go out in a minute. So take care, everybody. Say goodbye, Conrad.
Thanks for having me. I loved it.